You are now tuned into a brand new episode of the Simply Ball Dropping Podcast. I'm your host and the man behind the mic, K-Sap. Well, man, we got to talk about it, man. This Cleveland media, man, the Cleveland media has ran out of options. Basically, the Cleveland media and these insiders have struck out. Their options are limited right now because everything they said, it's not happening. And Todd Monken and Andrew Berry are going in a different direction. But we got to talk about it because look, right now we have exposed the Cleveland media and their options are limited and they have struck out. But we're going to talk about it right after this.
Let me put you on game. These other podcasts out here talking that shit, but ain't repping the same. It's my bro K-Sap, chopping up topics for your optics. From politics to your top hits. Tune in, you gotta watch this. Exclusive material for your radio, stereo, pumping high definition. Stop what you doing and listen. We smashing all competition. You better jump on this wave. Somebody pass me a mic, man, I got something to say.
Well, guys, you know I got something to say, man. Just the other day, man, I was a guest on the barbershop with G. Bush, and we was talking about the Cleveland media. And G. Bush brings up valid points, and G. Bush always has the awareness to call out bullshit when he can call out bullshit. Because when he sets on UCSS and Bull, Adam the Bull, Jason Lloyd, Jay Crawford, they just talk nonsense. And G. Bush has to call them out. And we talked about the Cleveland media, all the narratives that they put out there. And every time the Cleveland media puts a narrative out there, you know what we do. We expose them. We keep receipts and we talk about it, right? So now, right now, the Cleveland media, they've run out of options. They basically have struck out because there's a whole thing surrounding around this quarterback situation with Shedeur Sanders. And the Cleveland media, like I said, it's almost like a movement for them. Anybody but Shedeur. Anybody that can piggyback off of the notion of anybody but Shedeur in that Cleveland media, they have done it. And we have exposed the likes of Jason Lloyd, Anthony Lima, Mary Kay Cabot, Tony Grossi, Jay Crawford, and Adam the Bull. And the crazy thing about it is all the narratives out there about Shedeur Sanders this, Shedeur Sanders that, he's not this, he's not that. We have taken to the social media, YouTube content creation space in the sports media, and we have stood up for all the lies and the narratives that people are saying about Shedeur Sanders. And on every chance we get, and we see clips of Adam the Bull, Jason Lloyd, Anthony Lima, Mary Kay Cabot, Tony Grossi, when they say these lies and put these narratives out there, we talk about it. And right now, the Cleveland media have run out of options because everything that they said about Shedeur Sanders, Todd Monken begs to differ. Todd Monken is in a great space as a head coach of the Cleveland Browns, and he loves what he sees in Shedeur Sanders. So the Cleveland media wanted everybody to come in to replace Shedeur Sanders. All these quarterbacks that they talked about that would be a replacement for Shedeur Sanders, they wanted them in the building. But none of them showed up. Kyler Murray didn't show up. Kyler Murray went off to Minnesota. Malik Willis signed a healthy deal. They wanted Anthony Richardson. He's not available. Mac Jones, he's not available. All these quarterbacks that they talked about, none of them showed up, and you still stuck with Shedeur Sanders, Deshaun Watson, and Dylan Gabriel. And it's going to be a quarterback competition. And what me and G. Bush always say, iron sharpens iron. When you got Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders battling, iron sharpens irons. It's Shedeur Sanders' job to lose. Shedeur Sanders is your quarterback one. And the Cleveland media cannot accept that. So I saw this article on Yahoo Sports about the Cleveland Browns and their prediction. And we're going to take a look at that article because this article is kind of crazy. Let's take a look. It says the Cleveland Browns predicted the replacement to replace Shedeur Sanders with a recent first-round bust in a questionable move. It says the Cleveland Browns predicted to replace Shedeur Sanders with the recent first-round bust in a questionable move originally appeared on the Sporting News. And the Sporting News, a preferred source, the quarterback situation for the Cleveland Browns isn't the only one that has question marks. Making a big move to address their long-time future under center would be wise, but only if the Browns can make the right deal. Predicting where the quarterbacks could land, Austin Bundy, a fan-sided projection that the Minnesota Vikings quarterback, J.J. McCarthy, would land in Cleveland, a deal that wouldn't be too surprising at this point. Deshaun Watson has yet to deliver anything that would uncertainly surrounding his future. Cleveland is still searching for a reliable long-term answer, while younger options like Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel could be in the mix. Neither has been good enough to do much. See, these are articles that are produced because of the narratives that the Cleveland media and the insiders have been putting out there. And it's kind of crazy that it says the issue, however, is that McCarthy is the same boat as Sanders and Gabriel. Still early in his career, McCarthy has some tools, but this would be far from a sure thing. McCarthy still has a lot of upside, and Cleveland needs a long-term solution at passer. Deshaun Watson will eventually go, and neither Shedeur Sanders nor Dylan Gabriel have stepped up to take the reins. See, this is the stuff that I'm talking about. These articles like this, because these articles get put out there because of the narratives that the Cleveland media puts out in the stratosphere, and people write about this stuff. So a notion for somebody to pick this up and produce this on Yahoo Sports is asinine. They said the Browns would be taking a risk here that likely wouldn't make too much sense unless they were able to land McCarthy for a late round pick. It's better to go with another option. See, this is the stuff that I'm talking about. And it's kind of crazy that we have to talk about things like this. And it's kind of crazy to me that articles be produced like this, because of this is what the Cleveland media wants. And it's crazy to a sense where people write about stuff that the Cleveland insiders talk about. And that's why I say they running out of options. They just talking about anything now because of the fact that Todd Monken and Andrew Berry are running a tight ship, and all their alleged sources that they've talked about before, Joel Paterno, Kevin Stefanski. Kevin Stefanski's gone. Jason Lloyd, you can't get no more input or no more information. So now you just want to talk about anything. And like I said, articles like this go to show you that they're reaching. They have struck out. They've running out of options because every quarterback that they wanted, none of them have come inside that facility. And we are now 3 to 4 weeks into free agency, and the Cleveland Browns have done everything on what I've told you guys they need to do. Go bolster up their offensive line. And what have they done? They made a trade for Titus Howard before the trade free agency period started. And then they went out and got 3 more other offensive linemen. They signed back one of their offensive linemen. Then they upgraded at the linebacker position with Quincy Wilson. Titus Howard, y'all should be very, very, very excited about him as Cleveland Brown fans. Y'all should be excited about him. Over his 7 to 8 year career, he's only given up 7 sacks in a 7 to 8 year career. These guys that are on the offensive line are beefed up. And going into the draft at the number 6 pick, a lot of people say you should go out and get Cornell Tate, which is a great option. But if you can't get him, there's Monroe Freeland, offensive tackle from Georgia, Francis Muawi, offensive tackle from Miami. Going down later in the draft, if you want to get a receiver, you got the likes of Mekhi Flemings from USC. I mean, it's a lot of great talent that's coming out in this draft. And there's a lot of options that Cleveland can look upon because they have addressed a lot of things before the draft by trading for Tytus Howard, going out signing these offensive linemen. So Cleveland is in a great position to do some great things in the draft. And the Cleveland media has ran out of options. They have nothing else to talk about. They have nothing else to talk about. I've heard them crash out over Shedeur Sanders being the number one guy right now because Todd Monken has said it in so many words. They're crashing out because no other quarterback that they've talked about has entered the building. They don't like that. They don't like the fact that Jim Schwartz didn't get the head coaching job and Todd Monken got it. And Jim Schwartz put his name out there for resignation. He stepped away. But Jim Schwartz, you got to give him credit for everything he did defensively on upgrading them defensive players, the cornerbacks, the linebackers, the rookies, and Carson Schwetzinger helped groom them guys. Jim Schwartz was good at what he did as a defensive coordinator, elevated the defense's play. Myles Garrett got the sack record. Carson Schwetzinger, Rookie of the Year. Things like that. You know, Denzel Ward, Pro Bowl. Everybody that they, you know, that came over that played for Cleveland as cornerbacks, they elevated their game as well. So this notion of replacing Shedeur Sanders, it didn't go the way that the Cleveland media and the insiders wanted it to go. And now they reaching. Now they got the sad face. Mary Kay has nothing to talk about. She's just talking. Tony Grossi has nothing to talk about. He's just talking. Adam the Bull has nothing to talk about because he gets eviscerated every time G. Bush has to look him eye to eye. Jason Lloyd has no talking points. He gets eviscerated every time G. Bush sits in the middle on UCSS on that couch. Anthony Lima, we'll let Ken Karma deal with him. Ken Karma crashes out on him sometimes. Anthony Lima is probably one of the biggest jokes on radio station right now with Ken Carman. You know, he likes nothing about Shedeur Sanders. So their options are gone. They have struck out, and we prevailed because we told you guys Shedeur is the number one option. He's the best option. He's the future quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, whether you like it or not. So that's why Cleveland and Todd Monken and Andrew Berry have decided to go get the offensive lineman, go get pieces around Shedeur to help this guy key in on what he does best, the legendary stuff. I see everybody in the comments section, #salute. If you're not subscribed to the channel, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, turn your post notifications on so you know every time Simply Ball drops another hot banger. Oh yeah, just in case I forgot, tell a friend to tell a friend. It might not be for you, but it might be for them. And this is going to wrap up another episode of the Simply Ball Dropping Podcast. I'm your host and the man behind the mic, K-Sap. Catch you on the next one. Deuces.
Thanks for listening to the Simply Ball Dropping Podcast. Be sure to subscribe, like, and share on all major platforms.
That's all, folks.